So lessons from what happened. So based on what I've learned from the ambulance crew, as long as there is a road traffic collision, you should always call the police and the ambulance if somebody is hurt. So that guy, when he was saying, don't call the police or the ambulance, you're just going to be wasting your time, according to the ambulance crew, he might have been so scared, possibly because he doesn't have insurance, and if he gets reported, and that's going to be a penalty on him. But that shouldn't really stop you. Hey guys, it's Jake here again and welcome back to my channel. For today's video, I'm just going to be sharing to you my experience last week, a very bad experience. So basically, I had a road traffic collision with a motorcycle. As some of you might know, I cycle from my home to the train station here at the countryside, and then when I get to London, I also cycle from the train station going to my place of work. That particular day, I was making my way home, and it was a downhill road. So all the cars were at a standstill because of traffic, but the leftmost side was free where cyclists could pass. As I was going downhill, I wasn't even pedaling because it was downhill. I tend to just sort of cruise going down because if I continue to pedal, then it will be very fast. So it's my usual route, and nothing's happened for the last 1 year and 6 months. So I was quite confident that it was perfectly safe. So I didn't expect for it to happen. So as I was going down, about a few meters from the cycle lane going to the main road itself, a few meters down, suddenly out of nowhere, this motorcycle came out from behind the car. So he was actually making a U-turn, and I saw him come out, so I tried to do the brakes, and then I just couldn't stop in time. So I saw him, but he didn't saw me, because before coming out of the cars, he didn't actually look left, which you should do, especially if there's a car that blocks your view of your left side. So ideally, he should have looked left first, and he should have gone slow. You're meant to creep, isn't it? But he wasn't creeping, he just went. As soon as I saw him come out, I grabbed my brakes, and activated it as quickly as I could, but it was a small distance, so I couldn't really stop in time. So the whole of the right side of my body hit the motorcyclist and the motorcycle itself on his left side, and I was basically yanked out of the bicycle. It was really scary because at the point of impact, I was just like, oh no, is this gonna be it? It was really scary. I didn't know what was gonna happen. So fortunately, there was no other bicycles behind me, no cars or even other motorcycles behind me. So I was just on the ground and nothing came towards me. Whilst I was on the ground, the motorcyclist was able to quickly, get up and stabilize his motorcycle and park it on the side. I did try to stand, but then I couldn't because my right thigh was very, very painful. At that point, my right leg was just straight. I couldn't bend it because of the pain, so I couldn't stand. And it's just so discouraging because this guy, he didn't even come to help me. He was just standing from a distance, and he was saying, oh, you need to stand up and just continue. You don't need to call ambulance or the police because you're just going to be wasting your time. And for me, as someone who was injured at that point, and I was just on the road, just beside the pavement. I was so frustrated. I was so angry because, that's all he could think of. He didn't even help me. Um, I had to push my bike um, because it was in the road. I had to push it towards the pavement. Um, and then I had to drag myself slowly towards the pavement. It was just maybe 1 or 2 feet away from the pavement, so I had to drag myself. And people were just looking. This is the very sad, that very discouraging reality now. People from the other side of the road and drivers who were going down, they just didn't mind. They just continued down, and it's just so sad. I mean, is this how people are now? They don't even care. Um, so, as this is the first time this has ever happened to me, so I didn't really know what to do. So in my head, I wanted to call the police, but then the guy kept saying, you don't need to call the police. You don't even need to call the ambulance. You're just going to be wasting their time. Try to stand up and then just go on your way. And I was so frustrated because I really couldn't stand up, and it was so painful. And at that point, I sort of believed him not to call the police because, he didn't run away. I didn't see any blood anywhere, but I was definitely injured on my right leg. So I called the ambulance, and I gave all the details, blah blah blah. So fortunately, the area, well, not fortunately, but it so happened that the area where the accident happened is near where we used to live. And so I knew the postcode, and I knew one of the addresses just 3 doors away from where the accident happened. So that's the address I gave. And the 999 operator was saying, if it's painful to move, then don't move, just stay where you are. Don't try to stand up and wait for the ambulance. It might take about 30 to 40 minutes. And it was starting to get cold as well. This guy, the guy who was riding the motorcycle, is actually a delivery person for a pizza place, which was in a few doors. And whilst people were passing by and asking what's happened, he was saying his own version, and he was of the of the story, and he was saying, "Oh, I didn't even see him. He must have been going so fast." The point is, he didn't see me because he didn't look left just before turning right to do the full U-turn. And that's careless driving. And considering that he is a delivery person for that pizza place, and he's been there every time, he knows that that space is where cyclists pass by. He should have been more careful. What really frustrated me is the fact that he kept on trying to convince people of his own story rather than actually helping me. He didn't even offer any hand to move me. He didn't offer water or anything at all. He just stood there about a few meters away in front of the pizza place, and at one point he even said, "Why are you still there on the ground? Now I have to stop my work because I have to wait for the ambulance to tell them my story." And I was, my God, I was so angry at that point. Angry that I want to cry as well because I'm also frustrated, but also I'm in pain. And I'm just thinking of him. I'm really really angry because I've been doing this for a year and a half, same route every single time, and I'm always on the safe side. And now this happened, and it's just ruined a lot of things for me in terms of plans, and physically now I'm injured. And it's the lack of humanity, the lack of compassion. Didn't even bother to help. I don't know if he was afraid. So while I was waiting for an ambulance, a man actually came by and asked me if I was okay. And this might sound embarrassing, but I'm not embarrassed about it. So um, I don't have unlimited phone plan at the moment, so I'm on top up credit. And at that point, I didn't have any credit on me. So I asked if I could borrow his phone to call my manager, just to inform her of what happened, and also possibly to ask if she would be able to come to help. And unfortunately, she was with somebody and they were about to make their way home. And since I got the ambulance coming, so there wasn't really much that she could do anyway. So that's perfectly fine. So when the ambulance came, I tried to stand up again, but it was too painful. So they had to assist me, one ambulance crew on each side. My left leg was perfectly fine, and I sort of hopped on my left foot, was making sure that my right foot doesn't touch the ground because of the pain, and they assisted me towards the ambulance. And it was my first time to be inside an ambulance as a patient, and yeah, that was a different experience. So once they got me on the stretcher, they took all my details and asked me what happened, and then they did a quick assessment and checked the areas where I bumped to the motorcycle, and they saw that there was a bruising and a swelling on my right thigh. And there was actually, even with my jacket on, there was a skin tear on my right elbow, and I think it was from like a friction from inside when I crashed on the motorcycle. And since I was in severe pain at that point, they opted to insert a cannula on me. Then they gave me IV paracetamol, and since that takes a bit of time to finish and to take effect, they actually gave me IV morphine. That was the first time I've ever had morphine in my whole life. And to have it IV, it's not good. It was not a good experience. I mean, for the pain after it has taken its effect, it's good. But basically when they gave it, they warned me before they gave it. So they said that when morphine is given IV, so you're gonna feel this sort of like weird heat or sensation at the back of your neck, and you might feel apneic. And then they gave it to me, and just a few seconds after they gave the medication and they flushed the cannula. Oh my goodness, I felt like I was gonna die. Like, I'm not even kidding. So there was a sudden, like a very strong, I don't know if it's a heat rush or there's like a specific rush that from my spine, back of my neck, all the way to my head, and it felt very hot. And I felt my breathing slowing down, and at one point I felt like I was going to faint, and my breathing was like slowly decreasing until I felt like I was gonna stop breathing. And they had to check several times on me, and they kept on pressing my trapezius muscles, and they were saying, Jacob, you're okay, don't worry, you're gonna be fine, just take a deep breath. I did try, but it's really hard when you feel like you can't breathe anymore. And then, I don't know how long that was, maybe about 30 seconds or 40 seconds, I can't really tell. But yeah, then all of a sudden I woke up again, and they were like, oh, there you are. and yeah, no, that's not something I want again. So I told them, the paracetamol will work in a few minutes, don't give me any more of that morphine. No. Then we went to Whittington Hospital, and it was a very, very busy evening as well. We had to wait for like 2.5 or 3 hours. The ambulance crew was very nice actually. They were so friendly, so supportive, and they were so understanding, and they were just very nice and very kind. And we had some laughs as well once I was pain free. and we talked about their work as ambulance crew, about their shiftings, and their experience, how long they've been. So it was a good chat, and I learned a few things. By the way, the A&E nurse who came out of A&E into the ambulance to assess me was actually a friend of a friend and a fellow Filipino nurse, and it was so embarrassing because I had to pull my pants down and she was able to see my very fat thigh, and even fatter at that time because with a bit of swelling from the trauma. So after around 3 hours, they finally got the bed. Thank you. You know who you are. Thank you for sorting that bed out. I managed to have an x-ray of my I think it was a thigh, hip, and knees, just to rule out any fracture, because what the ambulance crew initially thought was because of the swelling on my right thigh, there could be a possible closed fracture. So when the x-ray came back, thankfully there was no fracture. The pain was because of the trauma and soft tissue injury from the impact. And I think it was an hour later, so A&E was very busy and the doctor didn't come back up until I think an hour later, once the x-ray was reported and he had finished his other patient. So he came back to me and then reassessed me again after painkillers, and then we tried to stand up. So at that point I was able to stand up strongly on my left leg, but there was still pain on my right leg. There was a big difference once I had all that painkillers. So when on the initial point of the accident, I couldn't bend my knees because of the pain. But a few hours later, after all those medications and painkillers, and after they've confirmed that there was no fractures, I think I was more confident to try and fold my leg and to have some weight on it. There was still some pain, but I actually managed to stand. But in terms of walking, I couldn't walk, longer distances without severe pain if I put some weight on my right leg. So just around 11 o'clock, I think, I was discharged with a crutch to use on my right side to assist me to walk. And then, yeah, I made my way home ever so slowly. Lessons. So lessons from what happened. So based on what I've learned from the ambulance crew, if there is a road traffic collision, whether it's pedestrian to motorcyclist or cyclist or even a car or car to car, whatever, as long as there is a road traffic collision, you should always call the police and the ambulance if somebody is hurt. So that guy, when he was saying don't call the police or the ambulance, you're just going to be wasting your time, according to the ambulance crew, he might have been so scared, possibly because he doesn't have insurance, and if he gets reported, and that's gonna be a penalty on him. But that shouldn't really stop you. So I'm quite naive with regards to this. This is not something that you'd think about and try and prepare what you'd say or what you would be doing until it happens to you. You don't really think about it. It's one of those things. So if this does happen to you, then immediately call the police, and if you are hurt, call 999 for the ambulance as well, and then take a photo of the area of the incident, the plate number of the motorcycle or the car. And I also learned later on, was doing the police report, that we should have exchanged details. So that guy, whilst I was in the ambulance, he actually changed his tone, since he now saw that I was actually hurt. He then said, "Oh, hold on, guys. I'm just gonna write my details and I'm gonna give them to you." But he only gave his name and the plate number. No contact details, no address. But I knew that he worked in that pizza place, so if ever, we could ask the details from there. Another thing I've learned is that the police will not always be there, because when I called, um, after getting all the details, they said they couldn't send anyone. But since nobody was badly injured, there was no blood or no severe injuries, then they asked me to do an online report, which I did the following day. So the police won't always be there, but if you're hurt, just call the ambulance. The last thing I've learned is that people are so apathetic nowadays. They just don't care. They'll just mind their own business. I don't know if it's just here in London or is it happening worldwide, but majority of people just don't care. And that's so sad. And for me as a nurse, who cares for people, who's been caring for people for the last 11, 12 years, it's really sad. It's really discouraging, to see how apathetic people have become, which is really quite the opposite of what we're used to as nurses. So I just pray that people learn to be more helpful, more empathetic again. We are, after all, human, so if we can try and be humane, and if you see anybody that needs help in the future, then please help. Even just to us, if you're okay, or if there's anything you can do. You don't have to be a hero, or fight the criminal, or if there's any criminal at all. Just stop for a few seconds and ask if there's anything that you can do. You never know. One day, you might actually be switching positions and you're the one that needs help. So always remember the golden rule. Okay? So yeah. So that's it, guys. That's my very bad experience in London. Up until this point, I am still taking some pain medicine. Thank you very much for staying with me and listening to my story. I hope that this doesn't happen to you at all. If you see somebody that needs help, please do help. Stay kind and be compassionate, guys. Thank you. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.